are listening to the Scale with Speed podcast. Why? Because scale equals revenue and speed equals profit. Hosted by nine-figure business builders Matt Monero and Judge Graham. Enter with caution.
Welcome to the Scale with Speed podcast. I'm Matt Monero.
And I'm Judge Graham. What are we talking about today, buddy?
Dude, we're talking about having tough conversations in the workplace. If you're listening and you don't get uncomfortable having tough conversations, then you ain't having tough conversations. Because tough conversations
are tough.
Are tough, and they make you uncomfortable, and they're scary, and they have real implications, such as if you have to have a tough conversation with your number one sales guy, you might lose revenue.
Yeah.
Right. If you're having tough conversations with with someone who has a bunch of stuff going on in their home life, and you're not sensitive or recognizing of that, then you're probably going to have somebody quit and be pissed. There's a million different reasons that go into the cause of having tough conversations, and we're going to dig into a bunch of them today. So, go ahead, Bob.
So one thing everybody listening to this podcast, it's such easy correlations to work back to home life. I mean, tough conversations need to be had also at home. Yeah. Could be with your kids, could be with your spouse, could be with your in-laws. But before we dive into this matter, because I love this one, and it took me I wouldn't say a long time, but I had to experience a lot of pain and loss of income as it relates to business until I just landed the plane on this one. And I would call them fierce conversations.
Okay.
Right? And so what I want everybody to really understand, because this podcast is called Scale with Speed. Dude, if you don't have tough conversations, you will not scale with speed. You will not compress time. And let me just give a quick example. You have that individual that you just can't stand talking to in your organization. There's a problem. He knows there's a problem. There's fucking tension, and it continues to build, and your ass just thinks it's going to go away. I'm going to let it ride out. He or she will quit. I know their numbers are down. It's not that bad. And then weeks go by, and maybe even a month goes by, and the loss of revenue, the loss of morale, how you feel, even though you don't realize it every day, that you don't even go in your own fucking office happy, is because you were too scared to have this conversation. Ooh. Okay? So frame that up as you go into this and how important it is. Because now imagine if you just had it, how you compress time, how you feel better, more than likely how that individual feels better, because the other tip I'm going to give you is more than likely they want to have that conversation. Yeah. They know it too, just like you know it, just both you are too scared to have it.
Dude, I got a story for today that helps solidify the back half of what you just said. They want to have it, right? Yeah. And I'm gonna give a little story here in a minute that I think would be ideal here. But let's give some more examples of what a tough conversation actually looks like, right? The employee performance is below expectation. Mm-hmm. You got to fire somebody. That's a tough conversation too.
Totally.
Right? What impact does that have? They're bothering, in parentheses, other employees.
Yeah.
Right? What does that mean? They're talking,
distracting them,
or
being negative,
maybe even harassing them. Yeah. Maybe it's
flirting with them.
Flirting with them. Yeah. How about? And by the way, we're talking about just in the employee side of things too, but you got to have tough conversations with the customers too, right?
Sure.
But what if the client isn't happy with the service that they're getting from the account manager?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have a tough conversation. You're going to lose the damn client.
Sure.
How about they smell like booze?
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Guy comes on in and you're like, well, that kind of did smell like booze this morning. What about reefer?
Yeah.
Man, that guy did smell like reefer this morning. What's going on there?
Right.
What is the culture? Do you want to talk to him about it or not? And then this is kind of odd, but it does happen, man. They don't dress well enough.
Sure.
They just don't uphold the standards of the organization. They just sort of look frumpy or look like shit. And it just, you would never see a UPS driver not in brown.
Yeah.
It's just how they do it there, you know?
Yeah.
So small examples, but real examples of things that make that conversation uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And we could both go a laundry list more, and the listeners can as well, you know? Judge, give a story of how you had to have a tough conversation. What was it about? How did you have it? And what was the outcome?
Yeah, totally. I remember fundamentally when SQ1 was pivoting from this idea of being a digital creative boutique agency to a fierce commitment of data and results. Okay, so the tide was about to shift from creative led the strategy to data and analytics living the strategy. Had a great creative guy at the time, right, leading up our creative teams, and he just couldn't make that pivot, right? Uh-huh. And again, it wasn't right or wrong. It was where we were going as a business. And, this is a real tough conversation because great guy, great work, great leader, great morale, fit the culture, everything. But the business has changed. And you got to sit down and have that conversation with the guy because this festered for a couple weeks because, we're changing process, we're leading things. And he's saying, no.
No, I need more time.
I need more time. The idea drives it, the creative. And I'm going, no. The fucking cost per click is driving it. The bounce rate's driving it. And the data's driving it. They like the red button, not the blue button. No, but blue's on brand. No. Red button, right? We're using the red button. So that got contentious, right? So you literally had to sit down and have that conversation of going, dude, you're not going to be a fit here anymore. And I believe fundamentally you can't change. And you need to be in an environment where the blue button matters more than the red button. And so, today's your last day, and we're gonna pay you through. And I hope you leave on good terms, and you've got to rally your rest of your team because we need them. And it was a tough conversation, man. I mean, because we had so many people that believed in him, and he was a great leader.
And he had done a good job.
He'd done an amazing job,
right?
And so the conversation was really one you didn't want to have, specifically because I liked the fucking guy.
Yeah.
Right? And the team liked him, and he did great work, but you had to have it. And if I wouldn't have had it, it would have lingered, and we would have started to lose some of those accounts, which, from a fiduciary perspective, wasn't right for everybody else.
Yeah, man. And that's a big money deal as well, too. I mean, that was a guy that had a successful career and was
yeah.
I mean,
we paid him, mid six figures.
Yeah. That was a big loss.
He's on the executive team.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well, mine isn't. My story on the tough conversation is not quite as expensive as that one is. But I remember having a guy doing telemarketing for us. And this guy was a really weird cat. His name was Larry, and he drove a big black van, like a 1970s.
Like the A-Team. Like BA's van with the red stripe.
More like Scooby-Doo's van is more
black.
But black. And this crazy son of a bitch, man, he smoked like a chimney. And this crazy bastard would go out. He would take his lunch break and he would sit in his van in the parking lot and he would smoke and eat his lunch in 100-degree weather.
Dude, I'm getting the visual. It just sounds fucking awful.
No air conditioning or nothing. I mean, it was just crazy.
I'm about to cough just thinking about it.
and Larry's performance was good, started out good, and then just began to trail, as we all have experienced, right? And the tough conversation was, and I was so young in my career, dude, I labored over this conversation of how do I get rid of Larry, right? I mean, I lost sleep over it, right? This also gives you an idea of vision or lack of vision of the organization and expectations and all that sort of stuff. Like, I was worried Larry was going to quit. This guy's smoking, probably drinking in the park. It was crazy.
He's probably making calls.
It was nuts. Give Larry his space in a black van in 100-degree weather. So I said, Larry, we got to have a talk. And he carried this like lawyer's briefcase, one of those box briefcases. And we met at the conference table, and he like slams his briefcase down on the table, very aggressively, right?
Dramatic.
Yeah. And I said, Larry, I got to let you go. And he looked me straight in the eye, and he said, you should have fired me 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I've had that too.
And I said to myself, I will never be afraid of that conversation again, because if I'm ready, I'm late.
Yeah, not only that, Matt, I want to piggyback off of that. Dude, the team knows when somebody shouldn't be there. And whether you realize it or not, they're looking towards your leadership and they're talking and going, why the fuck is Billy still here? Or Bob or Steve or whoever. I'm just making up a name, right? They're like, this dude doesn't fit the culture. He's creating issues. He's causing anxiety, and he's being disrespectful. Why isn't our leader doing something about it? Okay, so this tough conversation, this idea and this concept is much bigger than your feeling and the examples that just Matt and I gave. But there's a trickle effect to the organization. Okay, it's very clear when someone doesn't belong anymore. And if you just want to let it play out and see if it self-selects, dude, you're being a bad leader, in my opinion.
Dude, I just couldn't agree with you more. But we lose sleep over these tough conversations. Right. So let's give our listening audience two primary concepts that make tough conversations so much easier. And the first is you have to care about the other person. Look, we just had an example this morning in which I was having a conversation with a sales guy about, dude, it's go time for you. Like,
well, that was a tough. You did a great job, but that was a tough conversation because it was just a tough one.
But I needed him to understand that regardless of the outcome, I want the best for him. So I'm interested in his life getting better than where it is right now.
Yeah.
Forget about the economics in the business. It's how do you get to the next level? So that's the first element of reducing the toughness of these tough and fierce conversations, as you call it. The second piece, which I want you to dig into, is do you have data that helps support your reasoning for having the tough conversation, right? I mean, we either have to present with care of the individual or we have to present with data.
Yeah, and this gets back to, and I don't want to steal thunder here, so chime in. This is setting expectations, guys, right? So we'll use an example we talk about all the time in Burn the Ships, and Matt is relentless. It's like, hey, dude, you want to work here as a salesperson? Yeah, great. My average sales people make X. You like that salary? Yeah, it sounds great. Awesome. Okay, now in order to make that, we have a proven formula. We're going to give you the list, we're going to give you the computer, we're going to give you the phone, we're going to give blah, blah, blah. We're going to set you up for success. You have to make 175 calls. I'm making this up. Those calls turn into X amount of demos. Those demos then turn into X amount of proposals. And on average, those proposals convert at this rate. Okay, that's the job. That's the requirement in order to make the number I showed you. Are you comfortable with that number? Well, yeah, I want it. Awesome. How's that conversation now play out, Matt, if 4 days go by and they're making 50 calls versus 175, that tough conversation isn't as tough anymore, is it?
Yeah, that's the perfect example of using data to reduce the toughness of the conversation. We set the expectation. Everybody agreed on it. It was clear. It was a miss. We talked to him, remind him of the expectation that was set and clear and agreed upon, and then there's a miss, right? Now, in the first two misses, we would suggest you have a caring conversation. The third miss is, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Right? Without change, there won't be change. So what are you going to now do? The organization's giving you everything you need, and the data's saying you're not doing it. Mm-hmm. Do you need more training? Do you need more management? Do you need more leadership? What is it that you need? Because in most of those situations, they just need more work. Mm-hmm. They just got to do more work, and they're not willing to do it.
Yeah.
So the point is, the two ways that tough conversations get easier for both sides is that you lead with care, the individual care. You care about the person's success, his family or her family's success, and then you bring data in to support it.
Yeah, it's huge. And what we've seen play out is when you do both of those, you start to see them coming before you come. Hey, Mr. Monero, I just wanted to let you know, I appreciate you so much. I can tell that you care about me and I care about this organization. You've clearly outlined what I need to do. I'm just not a fit.
It's not for me.
It's not for me. And I can promise you that happens. And when you start to see that happen, you know you're onto something special.
You call it this self-selecting process.
Yeah, it's self-selects. Dude, this is how we do it here. This is our culture. These are our behaviors. This is our belief systems. And you quickly understand, do you belong or not? It's like being a part of a team or a tribe or a religion or whatever it is. You either feel like you're a part of it or you're not. And it's your job as the leader to do that. And those tough conversations now aren't tough.
But Judge, this is what we see over and over with our Burn the Ships attendees, who, by the way, many are very successful business guys in the initial phase of 0 to 5 million. And then the organization starts to break, and where it falls down is culture doesn't give them the strength to lead with care.
Yep.
And they have no systems to support data collection.
Yeah.
They just haven't set the expectations.
Yeah.
So the guy's like floating around and kind of Jenny's doing this.
They're still entrepreneur and they haven't converted to CEO or business owner.
Totally. It's exactly what it is.
So, this is a great one, this tough conversations. And, I think, Matt, I love that. Lead with care and then lead with data, right? Now, it's a self-reflection moment for everybody listening or watching right now. Have you done both of those? Have you provided, are you pissed off and frustrated, but yet you haven't provided the success roadmap? You haven't given them what they needed to be successful. So therefore that conversation is really tough and you're mad at yourself and you don't even know it, right? You have to have self-reflection and make sure before you have any tough conversation, did you set up this individual for success? Were you clear on the expectations? Are they clear on the culture? Are they clear on what they're accountable for? And are you leading with care? And if you're doing all that, guess what? Conversation isn't tough.
Dude, it's no longer tough. But here's the crazy part about it. Everybody thinks the system has to grow to a certain level through chaos and then break, and then you have to do this. No. Listen, we teach at Burn the Ships. You can do this from day one.
Yeah.
Follow the steps from day one, and you'll eliminate this school of hard knocks, which Judge and I believe is not a school at all. It's actually a freaking nightmare, right? But everybody has this badge of courage that I came up through the school of hard knocks, and we're here to tell you, dude, business doesn't have to be that. There is a systematic approach to running a successful business, and we teach it at Burn the Ships. So I'm going to plug it, burntheships.com. Go click boot camp and come to our October boot camp in Dallas.
All right, buddy. So we have
our Monday moments.
Right. What's great about this, Matt and I are so tactical, right? So we want to make sure that there's some actions you can take tomorrow or on Monday that you get to walk away with, and we've got 5. So, Matt, why don't you leave with the first one?
Okay. You touched on it earlier. Number 1 of your Monday moment. And listen, if you have to take all fucking weekend and you have to cancel your date night and you don't go to the games, you need to take the time to redo these expectations within your organization. You got to set crystal clear expectations for everybody that says, this is how we do it here. And Judge and I would go so far as to say, set them in everything. This is like, as we've been looking at budget stuff, the question has been, what about travel? Right? Yeah. What are we doing for travel expense with Corona and all that sort of stuff? And we now would like to put travel back into the budget and the schedule. And my response was, well, who's going to travel? And the names that were thrown out were some of our younger sales guys, newer sales guys, right? And I said, well, do they know how to carry the bag? That's what I refer to travel as, carrying the bag, right?
Carry the bag.
Like, I mean, if anybody's been on the road with with an old school sales guy, I mean, like the briefcase, like my old briefcase, remember, Judge? That was carrying the bag. Judge bought me a new briefcase, and I love it. I use it all the time, and I turned in my old briefcase. And dude, let me tell you something. Just on a side note, I bet 10 people have bought me new briefcases over the years, and I never could give up my old briefcase. But but yours was so functional and so cool to me that
I know how to carry the fucking bag. American Airlines can prove it with data.
So I just have this vision of this road warrior. If you're allocating company profits and money to it, do they know how to carry the bag? And the reason it connects to the expectation piece is I said, I want to train these guys. I only need an hour, but I want those guys to know This is how you stay in a fucking hotel. This is how you fucking fly. This is how many appointments you'll be on when you're using company money. This is the car that you drive. This is how you set your day. You're going to take the early morning flight and you're going to take the late night flight out.
Right.
I want to train you on how to carry the bag my way. And the reason for that is because, when I learned, the guy that I first worked for all those years ago was a freakazoid about travel expenses. He wanted you to travel, but he forced the training of how you traveled in his version of it.
Yeah.
So how do you set the expectations and go set them for everybody? Okay, number 2.
Yeah. Number 2 is use your core values as the foundation for the tough conversation. So if you're in an organization right now and you don't have a belief system, you don't have habits based on core values, it's harder to have those tough conversations, right? If one of your core values is speed, and you've laid out the accountability using Matt's example of, this is how we carry the bag, and, you do 15 appointments every time you travel. Why? Because speed is a core value of ours, and we compress time and we figure out how to do 15 when most salespeople only can do 10 or whatever it is. Now when I sit down and you didn't carry the bag right and you only got 5 consistently, dude, I sit down, that tough conversation goes back to Matt's one. We talked about 15 appointments. I taught you how to get to 15. You agreed on how to get to 15. And oh, by the way, remember that core value we all live by? Speed, compressed time? Dude, what's going on? That's much different than not setting expectations, not having a core value, and then just getting pissed off at the individual because they haven't done what you think they should have done.
Dude, that guy that I worked for that talked about training the bag, here's one thing he would do. Like if a few of us went to an event, we had to sit at different tables. He said, why would I have 2 of you or 3 of you sit at one table, the 6 top,
yeah.
So you dominate the table? No, 1 of you at each table, so you have 5 prospects for every one of you at each table.
That's brilliant.
I mean, it sounds simple, but that's what you have to do to get people to figure it out. Number 3 is the one that I didn't understand I was doing it, and it's a huge regret that I have in my career. Number 3 is praise in public, problem in private.
Big.
Dude, I didn't understand it. And I have to admit it. Like, I didn't understand it until a couple years ago. And even then, I truly didn't understand it. And I'm going to tell the story of how I saw you do it recently in a meeting where you had a tough conversation with the organization. And we had someone that was, she had already put in her 2 weeks. She was leaving the company. And during that meeting, I was saying, oh man, Judge just threw the hammer down on that one, right? I'm saying that to myself. And when the meeting was over, she came up to you and said, hey, Judge, can I have a conversation with you outside?
Yeah.
And I said to myself, oh boy, she's on her way out. She is about to lay into his ass,
yeah.
right? And give him a piece of her mind.
Yeah.
And she said to you, that was the best meeting I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And the company needed that meeting, and she appreciated you for doing
yeah.
it. And I don't know if you remember it, but I was driving home and I called you. I said, I just saw why she said that.
Yeah.
And the reason was because you never called anyone individually out. You kept it as a collective unit represented or pointing out the problems collectively. When I have had those meetings year upon year upon year, I relished the opportunity to call the individual out in public. And to go even so far as to potentially embarrass them.
Yeah.
And that was such a terrible flaw in my character to do that. I didn't understand that you praise in public and you problem in private.
Yeah, it's huge, Matt. I mean, what a great one to add. So right now, self-reflection moment. How are you handling those problems, right? Because back to the tough conversation, it's a lot easier in a group to boast your chest out like a peacock and just start yelling and calling one individual out because you got numbers and you got an audience, okay? That's the wrong way to handle it, right? And for the female listeners or whatever, I would say, listen, man up, okay? Have it in private. Have the tough conversation. Use what we're telling you because the organization needs it. The individual needs it. That's a great one, Matt. I love it. Praise in public, problem in private. All right, so the next one. Have backup data to support your position, right? I think we've belabored this one, right? You can't have tough conversations and be frustrated or upset with someone for missing something if you haven't properly provided the roadmap, the expectation, the ability to be successful. And furthermore, you don't have a system that accurately tracks it. Once you have those things, you lead data to lead the conversation, right? It's not, hey, why aren't you hitting your sales number? It's, hey, Jimmy, I'm struggling here a little bit, bud. You're down month over month, and I went back and looked, and it looks like to me that you've been making on average 50 calls a day, and the other month you were making 175. Yeah. So what can I do, Billy, to help, or Jimmy, to help you get to the 175? That's a totally different conversation.
You're not working hard enough. Well, I sure thought I was working hard. Well, I go home tired every day. Yeah. You're not doing your job. To what expectation? Right. I thought I was. Right.
Well, and you'll uncover things. Maybe it's, hey, boss, I'm glad you asked because I don't know if you knew this or not, but operations changed our list, and now I can't. It's bad data, and I can't call. Yeah. So now you have the conversation with ops and say, "Have you realized what's happening here?" Yeah. Well, boss, I was trying to save $100 a month. No. Like, get the right list back. You uncover things by having the tough conversations, and you need the data and diligence.
So the number 5 of the Monday moments for how to have the tough conversations is give them another chance. But make sure you get, in parentheses, what we're calling a Roger that moment. It means that the other side heard you, repeated the problem, defined the action change. Right. They Roger, dude, I get it. I heard you, boss. I appreciate the second chance. Now I'm going to go change.
2 hours ago, I would have disagreed with 5 until I saw you handle that tough conversation with our sales guy this morning. Mm-hmm. And what was my response? I was checked out, and I was like, hey, dude, why don't you just fucking go home and figure out what you need to do, right? And you came back to 5 now, and I loved it. You said, no, here's what you need to do. I need you to do this one more time and put it in, and then we'll know. And I would have never have done that, but now watching how you handled that situation, dude, it's spot on.
We're going to give you another chance.
Yeah.
But I need to hear that you heard me.
Right.
And I need a Roger that moment. I need you to, Roger that is a military term that when Roger that is said back to the commanding officer, it means the subordinate Understood.
Right.
Like clearly understood the mission.
Which you gave out. You said the mission is going to be 100 call, this.
Yeah.
And then you literally said, are we good with that? And this is how we're going to do it. And, he didn't say Roger that, but he said, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, but you could see that there still was hesitancy.
Yeah, but right? that's just how it plays out,
Yeah. The point, I think the big takeaway for anybody listening to is that you're looking for people that say Roger that before you need to ask. Like,
right. You shouldn't have to ask.
If you keep having to give extra chances and you're getting a lot of Roger
Listen, number 5 said give them another chance, right? Not multiple. Let's just be clear on that. Right? That's where I am going to push back. If it's more than one, there's probably going to be pushback.
All right, listen, everybody.
BurnTheShips.com.
BurnTheShips.com. Click Boot Camp, October 7th and 8th in Dallas, Texas. Killer event. Watch the testimonials. Watch the sizzle reel. The most important thing, too, is click the damn like button. Tell your entrepreneurial friends about this podcast. We believe it is one of the most...
Hit a comment.
Yeah, leave us your comments. We'd love to do a Q&A section down the road, a whole episode dedicated to that. But most importantly, do what we're telling you to do. This isn't fantasy shit. Mm-hmm. This is not some book that we read and we're regurgitating. This is shit that we have lived, just like you're living.
Yeah.
So we're going to see y'all down the road.
Get the books, The Grit. We need to put The Grit out. I don't think it's there.
Yeah.
Matt's book, Matt Monero, The Grit. Great book. Matt Monero, You Need More Money. Great book. My 2 books, Scale with Speed, Mastering Recurring Revenue. See you down the road. And as always, make it happen.
You are listening to the Scale with Speed podcast. Why? Because scale equals revenue and speed equals profit. Hosted by 9-figure business builders Matt Monero and Judge Graham. Enter with caution.